What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another reaction video. We got Deshaun Watson finally got his bad karma. Let's check this out.
And what now I think has to reasonably be described as the worst transaction in football history.
He's a $73 million cap hit next year. And the year after, the worst quarterback in the NFL right now. Dead last in practically everything.
At the very start of the season, I made a promise to myself to only make 1 to 2 videos on how terrible Deshaun Watson is per month. And so far, we've held true to that promise because as time goes on, we have more and more evidence that Deshaun Watson is truly a shell of his former self and a horrific QB. And on top of that, he's holding the Cleveland Browns hostage and there's nothing they could do about it. So this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. Before we get to the content, we are on the grind to 1 million subscribers. Subscribe and turn on our notifications to help us get to that goal. Now that we get all that out of the way,
break W intro.
Unfortunately,
okay, bro. I already knew who's gonna do the prize pick shit, so we're gonna go ahead and skip over that.
You're wondering where's the video on the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, bro.
I'll bring that to you guys a little later because they're on a bye. The story of Deshaun Watson is very near and dear to my heart, primarily because he was one of my favorite players in the NFL when he was playing for the Houston Texans. And look, man, I'm not ashamed of admitting that. When I watched him play in Clemson and become a national champion in 2016, I was immediately addicted to his game. He had literally everything you would want in a quarterback. He had athleticism, size, speed, and a tremendous football IQ. And it was this football IQ that got him drafted with the 12th overall pick in the 2017 NFL draft by the Houston Texans. Before getting drafted to the NFL, Dabo Swinney called Deshaun Watson the Michael Jordan of football, and in his rookie season, he backed up those claims. In only 6 games starting for the Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson had a 62% completion percentage, threw for 1,700 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. And this was only in 6 games starting. He was also able to add an additional 2 touchdowns on the ground, and that was just a glimpse of this young man's potential. In 2018, he picked up where he left off, throwing for over 4,000 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. He also added 551 yards rushing and 5 TDs on the ground, but he was also sacked a league high 62 times.
Damn.
Then the Houston Texans actually showed some signs of competence.
Has the Texans always had a bad O-line?
For Deshaun Watson, trading a huge haul, 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick to the Miami Dolphins in return for Laramie Tunsil, Kenny Stills, a 4th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick. Kenny Stills was underrated for real. Yes, but whenever you have a star quarterback that was just sacked 62 times, I could understand the urgency in trading that haul for a blindside anchor. And ultimately it paid off. Deshaun Watson had another incredible season in year 3, completing 67% of his passes, 3,852 passing yards, 26 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, 7 additional rushing TDs, and instead of getting sacked 62 times, he was sacked 44 times. And unfortunately, this would be the last bit of success that Deshaun Watson would taste with the Houston Texans, because despite having one of the most exciting young teams in the NFL, with JJ Watt and Jadeveon Clowney on the defensive side of the ball and Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins on the offensive side of the ball, the Houston Texans decided to screw all of that up in 2020, trading DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals for
I still don't understand why the hell they did that, bro.
Johnson. The thing that was even more
this is the biggest lopsided trade of all time, bro. This nigga David Johnson had only 1 good season. I think it was like 2016. Like, bro, after that, this nigga was doing nothing in the league, bro.
Separate trade for Brandon Cooks shortly after, so everybody was expecting Deshaun Watson to have a horrific season in 2020.
And he had his best season yet.
Is the exact opposite would happen. In 2020, Deshaun Watson would give us his single best statistical output of his career, throwing for over
almost 5,000 yards. Crazy.
Touchdowns and 7 interceptions. He would get sacked 49 times, but he would also add 3 rushing TDs. He completed 70% of his passes.
And they were 4 and 12.
4 and 12. JJ Watt would famously say this to Deshaun Watson following the season.
Good job, brother. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We wasted one of your years. I'm sorry.
Damn, bro.
You should have 11 wins.
And shortly after,
damn,
Deshaun
bro.
Watson
WJJ Watt, man.
the Houston Texans, primarily because he didn't like the Jack Easterby ran Houston Texans. They weren't making good decisions, they weren't making good moves, and shortly after, things would get even worse for Deshaun Watson. We all know what would happen from here on out. Multiple allegations would be filed against Deshaun Watson in regards to his affinity for massages. It got so bad that Deshaun Watson had to take off for the 2021 season, on top of losing multiple endorsement deals with Nike and Beats by Dre, Reliant Energy, and HEB, and Deshaun Watson's football future was up in the air. Now, it wouldn't be until March of 2022 where a grand jury declined to indict Watson on criminal charges related to the incidents, but he still faced 22 civil lawsuits.
Like 22 is crazy, bro.
August, but until then, NFL teams realized that Deshaun Watson would be available for a trade. Now, here's where things would get very interesting, because Deshaun Watson would do a grand tour of multiple teams that he'd be interested in. The primary contenders for Deshaun Watson's services were the New Orleans Saints, Atlanta Falcons, and Carolina Panthers. The Cleveland Browns also planned to visit with Deshaun Watson as well, but Deshaun Watson wasn't very interested in them. From Cleveland's point of view, they were coming off of a
like, bro, you see how money changes everything. This nigga did not even want to go to Cleveland, but they offered him a $230 million fully guaranteed contract to change his mind. See how everything's about money now, bro? You know what I'm saying? So for him to prioritize getting a huge bag over winning a championship and see where it got him.
Interesting season. You see, up until this point, Baker Mayfield has been their best quarterback in franchise history.
Yeah.
The problem with Baker is he'd give you a really good season and then follow that up with a poor season.
I mean, look at the talent he had around him, though.
For instance, in year one, Baker Mayfield completed 64% of his passes, 27 touchdowns to 14 interceptions, and led the Browns to 6 wins out of the 13 games he played. So the Browns decided to build around Baker Mayfield even further, trading for a star wide receiver in Odell Beckham Jr., bringing in Olivier Vernon, and also allowing Baker Mayfield to have a say in regards to who his next head coach should be. Baker chooses Freddie Kitchens, and Freddie Kitchens was the wrong guy. Baker regressed mightily. The offense had no rhythm at all whatsoever, and Baker threw for 22 touchdowns to 21 interceptions, while leading the Browns to a 6-10 record in his second year.
22 tutties to 21 picks is crazy. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Who placed a greater emphasis on the run game. The Browns utilized Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb a little bit more, and Baker Mayfield had his best season to date for the Browns in terms of overall team success, leading them to 11 wins, throwing for 3,500 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, and even defeated his division rival Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs before inevitably losing the very next game. Now, at that point, fans were just saying that Baker was a product of a good defense, and that's not necessarily wrong. Baker definitely utilized a successful rushing attack and one of the most potent defenses in the NFL to lead the Browns to wins. But at the same time, I always felt like that's a ridiculous argument. Would Patrick Mahomes win the Super Bowl over the past 2 years if it wasn't for his defense? I mean, literally the play that won the Chiefs the Super Bowl last year was Chris Jones pressuring Brock Purdy to seal the game.
Yeah, because it was a big breakdown too, bro. This nigga right here just completely allowed Chris Jones to come flying through.
Jones pressuring Brock Purdy to see.
Because if that doesn't happen, I think the Niners win this game. I'm gonna just keep it a buck because Juwan Jennings is open right here, bro. They would at least got a first down off of this.
Going into year 4, Cleveland had to make a decision on Baker Mayfield. Were they going to exercise his 5th-year option, or were they going to let him walk in free agency? Well, year 4 was a catastrophe for the Cleveland Browns. Baker Mayfield injured his shoulder multiple times throughout the season, and in typical Baker Mayfield fashion, he opted to play through the injury. As a result, the Browns thought that this was how Baker Mayfield is. He'll give you one good season and follow it up with a bad season, and they just thought he sucked. And to be honest, for that season, Baker did stink, but he was playing through an injury. The Browns went 6-8 with Baker under center. He threw 17 touchdowns to 13 interceptions and completed 60.5% of his passes. So the Browns felt like if they moved on from Baker Mayfield and they traded for Deshaun Deshaun Watson, then they would have all the pieces that were necessary to win a Super Bowl. In theory, it wasn't the wrong philosophy, because once again, Deshaun Watson was coming off of a spectacular season for the Houston Texans, although he was a year removed from football. But the problem was the way the Browns got Deshaun Watson. You see, it's not like the Browns went up to Deshaun Watson and said,
"Hey, come play for us and you'll probably win a Super Bowl."
Because Deshaun Watson straight up rejected the Browns the first time he was approached by them. It wasn't until the Browns made Watson an offer that he couldn't refuse that he agreed to be traded to the Cleveland Browns. So on March 18th, 2022, the Cleveland Browns sent a first and fourth round pick in 2022.
Like, look at this, bro. Look at this. Bro, 3 first round picks. A first round pick 2022, 2023, and 2024. And then 2 fourths and a third. Like, bro, and I think they threw some key players in there as well.
First and third round pick in 2023 and a first and fourth round pick in 2024 in return for Deshaun Watson. What's even crazier than this is on top.
Or is that the no? That was the rush trade. Never mind, that was the rush trade.
He decided to renegotiate his existing contract on September 5th, 2000.
Like, I don't understand why they did that, bro. They like at least watch the nigga play for a year and see how good he is. Cause now y'all are fucked. Y'all are fucked now. Y'all should have waited till he played, and if he had a great season, then you give him a big contract. I'm not sure $230 million fully guaranteed would have been the right idea, but it depends on how good he played, though. If he would have played good like he did in his last year in Houston, then maybe $230 million guarantee would have been good.
4-year, $177.5 million contract extension with $111 million guaranteed with the Houston Texans. At the time, it was the second most lucrative contract in the NFL, just after Aaron Rodgers.
And like, hold on. And like, look at this too. He signed a 4-year contract extension till 2025. So y'all would have had this nigga on contract still through next year. Like, bro, and for him to play bad now, bro, you know what I'm saying? Y'all could have y'all wouldn't have been as deep as a hole that y'all are in now, bro. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause y'all could have moved on from it after next year. But now y'all are fucked. $70 million cap hit is absolutely diabolical, bro. Only the Browns can do some dumb shit like this.
Lucrative contract in the NFL just after Aaron Rodgers. But the Browns decided to renegotiate his contract, signing Deshaun Watson to an unprecedented 5-year.
These dumbass niggas still had him under contract for like 2-3 years, bro.
The largest contract with the most guaranteed money in NFL history. Since then, other quarterbacks have asked for this contract, and pretty much every other team that had to deal with a QB negotiating for such a contract responded by saying,
"We're not as incompetent as the Cleveland Browns."
So the Browns unfortunately were against the clock, because Deshaun Watson's cap hit versus the Cleveland Browns was going to be very hefty following his third year. Unfortunately, year one of Deshaun Watson on the Cleveland Browns wasn't necessarily the greatest. Deshaun Watson would get suspended for the first 11 games of the 2022 regular season, and by the time he returned, he looked nothing like the version of himself.
This is his third year with Cleveland, right? So like, bro, y'all would at least got 3 years out of this nigga. You know what I'm saying? And if he would have still been playing bad as he is now, y'all would have been able to move on from either cut him or maybe even trade him. You know what I'm saying? Like, now y'all can't do that because the cap hit is absolutely humongous, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Having a fairly solid supporting cast. Deshaun Watson completed 58 passes for over 1,100 passing yards, 7 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, and led the Browns to a 3-3 record, which wasn't good enough to make it to the playoffs, but at the time, Browns fans were saying, hey, maybe Deshaun Watson's rusty, which I didn't really think.
Nah, the massages just sucked all the talent out of this nigga, bro.
If they would get the old Deshaun Watson from Houston back. And to be honest, not really. Deshaun would lead the Browns to a 5-1 record, but they weren't necessarily winning games because
of their defense.
Primarily the defense, and Deshaun Watson was just doing his absolute best not to throw away the game.
And now that Cleveland's defense isn't as good as it was these last couple years, Look how many games they're winning, bro. They've only won one game this year.
Once again, before fracturing his right shoulder. Watson would undergo season-ending injury to repair a broken bone in his throwing shoulder, and by year 3, Deshaun Watson's cap hit was starting to come into effect. But despite this, the Browns still made sizable upgrades around Watson. If you take a look at Deshaun Watson's team, apart from his offensive line, it's not that bad of a team. At wide receiver, he has Amari Cooper.
He's gone now.
Elijah Moore. At tight end, he has David Njoku, who is a former first-round pick. His defense is one of the best defenses in the NFL, and of course, he doesn't have Nick Chubb this year, but Jerome Ford and Deontay Foreman are a solid rushing duo, although not one of the greatest in the NFL, primarily because their quarterback hasn't been much of a threat so far. So how would year 3 of the Deshaun Watson experience go? Well, fairly terribly. And I guess this is why I waited so long to discuss how terrible Deshaun Watson has been so far, because Austin Gale gave us some meme-worthy stats. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard some of these. Over the past 3 weeks, Deshaun Watson has as many touchdowns as Rodney McLeod Jr., which is the safety of the Cleveland.
That is crazy. Yeah, because I think Rodney McLeod had the scoop and score off the blocked field goal from Myles Garrett last week. What was his second touchdown? I mean, his first one. Yo, that is nasty work.
Brown.
Damn.
He's also taken a league high 31 sacks, which is 11 more than any other QB in the league. He's been sacked on 13.5% of his dropbacks, which is tied for the 10th highest rate for a quarterback in weeks 1 through 6.
And sometimes Watson does that to himself, bro.
Of course.
That nigga be running into sacks, gang.
Offensive line this year. Jack Conklin and Jedrick Wills haven't been available, but he currently has the 4th highest pressure to sack ratio and the 5th highest time to throw on all dropbacks, meaning that a lot of this is also on Deshaun Watson.
That's exactly what I just said, bro.
As well. The Browns are
exactly what I just said.
26 on their last.
That is insane.
Third downs with Deshaun Watson under center.
It's nasty
according to the Fox broadcast. Watson's drop back percentage on third downs this season is 24%, which is the 11th lowest success rate on third downs for any QB in weeks 1 through 6. Of course, Browns fans remember Joe Flacco at the end of last season, as he was.
And you see how Flacco performed. He took them to the playoffs, bro. So it is obviously a Deshaun Watson problem, bro. Like, come on, like, why, like, I just don't understand why they re-signed this nigga when he had 3 years left on his contract. That's just something I don't understand, bro. Cause even if he would have played bad like he is now, like y'all would have been able to just move on from him. But now y'all can't until like what, 2027 or some shit, 2028? Like, bro.
Before obviously having a meltdown in the playoffs, but Joe Flacco in 2024 in 2.5 games, 7 TDs and 1 interception. Deshaun Watson in 2024 in 6 games, 5 TDs and 3 interceptions.
Crazy,
in terms of
bro.
net yards per attempt, which subtracts sack yards lost from passing yards and divided.
And Joe Flacco still outplaying Deshaun Watson this season too.
5th lowest net yards per attempt average, which is 4.2 in weeks 1 through 6 since 2000, placing him in the bottom 1% of all QBs. Notably, New England's Jacoby Brissett is at 4.4 net yards per attempt.
Yeah, Brissett got benched now too, bro.
Still better than Watson, and Brissett's already been benched. Bill Barnwell discusses how horrible Deshaun Watson has been in terms of moving the chains. Since 2007, 566 quarterbacks have thrown at least 100 passes in the first 6 games of their team's respective seasons. By first downs per pass attempt, Bo Nix's 2024 season is tied for 564th, which is 22.2%, and Deshaun Watson's 2024 season is 566th, which is 22.1%. To quantify how horrible Deshaun Watson has been, here's how quarterbacks perform in expected passing situations through week 6. And at the very bottom behind Bo Nix and Gardner Minshew is Deshaun Watson, who is only ahead of Will Levis, Jacoby Brissett, and Bryce Young. 2 of those 3 quarterbacks have already been benched. benched, but not Deshaun Watson. You might be wondering why, and we're gonna get to why in just a sec. Austin Gale continues to mention that the Cleveland Browns' offensive success rate in weeks 1 to 3 is the lowest it's ever been in any season for the franchise since 2000. And bear in mind, this is the Cleveland Browns that have historically had bad offenses. And Deshaun Watson is leading an all-time franchise bad for one of the worst franchises in the NFL. And
I feel like if they want to win, they're gonna have to make some big sacrifices. I ain't even gonna lie to you, bro. They're gonna have to make some big time sacrifices because they're not gonna win a Super Bowl anytime soon. You know what I'm saying? They've already traded Amari Cooper. You know what I'm saying? I think that, like, even though I think it's not gonna happen, I feel like they need to trade Myles Garrett too, bro, because we know how valuable Myles Garrett is, and he's worth like at least like 2 first-round picks or even more, bro. You know what I'm saying? At least 2 first-round picks, probably like a 5th or 4th, you know what I'm saying, or both in that, and then like some key players as well. You know what I'm saying? They need to trade him. Nick Chubb, I could see them parting ways with, you know what I'm saying, trading him or releasing him or something like that. Like they need to definitely start over from scratch. You know what I'm saying? Because this is just horrible. It is bad, bro. It is really bad for them right now.
Still is. The Browns,
now, as a Ravens fan, I love seeing this.
Negative 1.3,
but like,
drive, which is the lowest average for any Browns offense in weeks 1 through 6 since at least 2000. It's also the worst Browns offense this millennium by success rate and yards per play. Watson also ranks last in EPA per dropback and success rate among any Browns quarterback with 120 plus dropbacks in weeks 1 through 6 since at least 2000. Let's step away from EPA and let's just discuss QBR for a second. Austin Gale goes into it again. He's currently dead last by ESPN's QBR metric, which scales quarterback performance from 0 to 100 at 21.5. For comparison, he had a QBR of 43.7 last season before he was injured, and his career high QBR was as a rookie in Houston at 83.7. To put his QBR into context, he's currently worse than Blaine Gabbert's 22.5 in 2011 and is the worst since...
Nah, bro. Being worse than Blaine Gabbert has got to be the ultimate blow, bro. Holy shit, we know how horrible this nigga was.
Carolina's Jimmy Clausen, who posted a QBR of 13.8 in 2010. Now, for those of you guys that don't understand EPA per dropback, just take a look at this chart. Deshaun Watson
Jamarcus Russell
EPA as Kyle Buller and is only slightly above David Carr, Jay Fielder, Andrew Walter, Will Levis, Joey Harrington, Cordell Stewart, Josh Rosen, and Jamarcus Russell. When we discuss success rate on dropbacks, Deshaun Watson is only beating out David Carr, Mark Bolger, Josh Rosen, Achilles Smith, Jay Fielder, Blaine Gabbert, and
Jamarcus Russell was so horrible, bro.
On the cake in this incredible article by Austin Gale is this argument that he is worse than Jamarcus Russell. Deshaun Watson has generated a negative 66.2 EPA on dropbacks, beating Russell's negative 62.8 EPA on dropbacks in weeks 1 through 6 in 2009 for the record low this millennium. Now, here's the craziest part. Deshaun Watson has so much leverage over the Cleveland Browns that there's literally nothing that you could do here. I mean,
because like a reporter, you can bench him, but like you're paying this nigga way too much money to have him riding the bench, bro. Let's be for real. And if I were them, I'm keeping him in the starting lineup because if I'm being honest, bro, they would be better off tanking, and that's basically tanking when keeping this nigga in the game. Let's be for real, bro. So they keep this nigga in the game. I would say they would probably lose every other game this season. You know what I'm saying? I can only probably see them win like at least one more game. You know what I'm saying? And then they have the number 1 overall pick. Now, I don't know what they would do with that number 1 overall pick because they can't move on from Deshaun Watson yet. You know what I'm saying? I would think they draft either offensive lineman or receiver. You know what I'm saying? Because moving on from him that's a long way away, bro. You know what I'm saying? But that's the route I see them taking. But if they do bench Deshaun Watson, bro, then I think that might be stupid. In all honesty.
Dorsey brought all this new stuff in. Should he be the one calling the plays?
That's a Kevin question.
If you just take a look at the eye test, whether it's his lowlights versus the Commanders or Bobby Wagner literally trolling him to
that shit is funny, bro.
Statistics like the fact that an astounding 45% of passes directed at Amari Cooper have qualified as off target this season. We haven't seen an off target.
That's why I'm glad he's on Buffalo now, bro.
With 40 plus targets since at least a year prior in 2011. Now, don't get me wrong, there are instances where Deshaun Watson's wide receivers drop the pass as well. But the craziest part is whenever Watson is asked about this, he doesn't even acknowledge the fact that he's playing terribly.
It's getting pretty loud, national guys criticizing you. So how do you go about continuing to block that out?
I just continue to. First off, I don't hear it, I don't see it. So I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on any social media or things like that. So
if I was him too, I would delete all social media as well, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you, gang.
Either you guys are bringing it up, or somebody else outside, and I just don't know who it's coming from. So,
which brings us to one question: why hasn't Deshaun Watson been benched up until this point? His name is being thrown up there with the likes of Will Levis and David Carr and Kyle Bowler and Jamarcus Russell, for crying out loud. How is it that he still has a job? Well, it's pretty simple. The Browns don't really have a choice. This is what happens whenever you give up this many assets for a quarterback and pay him fully guaranteed. Whenever you give up,
bro, this shit is crazy. The Texans got Kenyon Green, Dameon Pierce, which Dameon Pierce hasn't really lived up to expectations, you know what I'm saying? But they just traded Cam Akers, so maybe they got faith in him again. Will Anderson's looking like a dog. Tank Dell's looking like a dog. Kamari Lassiter looking like a dog. And Kalen Bullock in his rookie season so far has 2 picks, and he's had a bunch of pass breakups as well. So they 100% fleece the Browns, bro.
This many assets for a quarterback and pay him fully guaranteed money. Look, the Denver Broncos trade for Russell Wilson is without a doubt one of the worst trades in NFL history, and no one is discounting that. They gave up multiple assets, multiple first-round picks, and then extended Russell Wilson and cut him before he even played a single down on that extension. There's no question that it's one of the worst trades in NFL history. The difference between the Broncos trade for Russell Wilson and the Browns trade for Deshaun Watson is that the Browns gave Deshaun Watson fully guaranteed money. So when Kevin Stefanski is asked each and every week why he's not going to try Jameis Winston at the quarterback position, all he can say is, I think Deshaun Watson gives us the best chance to win.
Yeah, you know damn well you lying, bro. I mean, what is the head coach supposed to say, bro? You know what I'm saying? What is he supposed to say? Oh, well, I think Watson gives us the best chance to tank for the #1 overall pick. Like, bro, come on now. What do you expect this nigga to say?
Give us the best chance to win, and we need to play really good football at his position and at every position to be successful. But the truth is that the Browns don't have a choice. I mean, Ari Meirov says it perfectly here. The Browns can't say this, and they won't say this, but there's nothing they can do about Deshaun Watson. He's making $45 million this year, will make $45 million fully guaranteed next year, and another $45 million fully guaranteed the year after that.
Watson's just robbing them right now, bro.
$9 million in both years. You can't
highway robbery.
They'll have to word salad
GTA type shit
this until he plays well and they actually start winning. But the thing is, if you ask some players, or if you ask Shannon Sharp, they'll say that Deshaun Watson lost
Ben Simmons.
But if you ask me, I don't think Deshaun Watson lost his confidence. I think he lost his will to win.
Whoa, shout out to a new sub.
Why would you go out and try?
Yes, sir.
Getting paid no matter what. You don't just magically.
That shit scared the fuck out of me. I ain't gonna lie, bro.
Play like this. Think about it. Yeah, Deshaun was away from football for a season. That's fine. But you don't just magically forget how to play the game of football at your position. You don't go from a quarterback that had over 4,800 passing yards and completed 70% of his passes, 33 touchdowns to 7 interceptions with Brandon Cooks as your top wide receiver.
But what I think is, bro, you know what I'm saying? He didn't want to go to Cleveland to begin with. You know what I'm saying? And they reeled him in. They suckered him in with a $230 million contract. I know this might be a stretch. You know what I'm saying? What if he's playing like this on purpose? Like, I don't think that that's the case, but it's just a funny scenario to think about. What if he's playing this bad on purpose to teach the Browns a lesson, my nigga? Because he didn't want to come here to begin with. They suckered him in with the contract and shit. So maybe You know what I'm saying? He's just doing this to get back at him for him not wanting to be here. I don't know. Or maybe he just really is this bad.
Because Deshaun Watson was one of my favorite players in the NFL before the allegations. And it's just really sad to see him go out like this, both off of the field and on the field. And I'm going to be honest, this video is
probably going to be long as shit, bro.
This year, because I'm sure it's just going to get worse and worse. But if you're a Browns fan, let me know in the comment section down below. How do you guys feel about all this? I apologize if this is longer than our average video. This is just
are you good, bro? W content, you feel me?
A decent amount of history on. We also have a video on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are probably as big of a dumpster fire as the Cleveland.
Yeah, they overpaid T-Law, bro. I tried to tell him.
End of the tunnel to fix them. I'll leave a link to that in the end screen. I'll meet you guys there. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.
Hey, man. I want to know what you guys think, bro. You know what I'm saying? About Deshaun Watson, about the Cleveland Browns. They're just really in a fucked up spot right now, bro. You know what I'm saying? I think only the Browns could do some shit like this. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, the Broncos, you know what I'm saying, fucked up with the Russell Wilson shit, but they're gonna be out of their situation pretty soon. You know what I'm saying? They're still, even though they're still paying him right now, and the Steelers only paying him like what, $1 million or some shit like that. Bro, the Browns are still paying Deshaun Watson all his money. You know what I'm saying? He's making $45 million this year. I think $45 million next year as well. And his cap hit is $72.9 million, bro. Like that shit is just diabolical. But I do want to know what you guys think down in the comments below, and what you guys think about the whole situation. What should Cleveland do? You know what I'm saying? I want to know what y'all think about that. But y'all let me know what other NFL videos y'all want me to react to as well. Without further ado, I'm out. Gang!